Good evening, welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the programme tonight, a stern message from the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who was in Rajouri today, days after 4 soldiers were killed in action in an encounter. His visit also comes as 3 innocent civilians were picked up, tortured and killed reportedly by members of the armed forces after that encounter. Today the Defence Minister was clear. He said, I want to request you, and he was speaking to the army, that besides ensuring the country's security, you also have the responsibility to win the hearts of people. There should be no mistake that hurts an Indian. He also met civilians in hospital who survived the torture and are now recovering. On the show tonight, Fight Terror, Win Hearts is Rajnath Singh's strong message to troops, the army in Jammu and Kashmir. Enough. Also on the show tonight, a huge worry. The war in Israel is expanding to larger parts of West Asia, with Israel hinting at military operations across the Middle East. A war on 7 fronts. The Israeli Defense Minister stating, we're coming under attack from Gaza, Lebanon and Syria. Israel has also come under attack from Houthi drones, and that is a huge concern for them. Where is the conflict in West Asia headed? Later on the show, we continue with our year-ender specials, looking at the biggest international stories of 2023. One of the most interesting ones, certainly from an India standpoint, India on the moon, Chandrayaan-3. That was truly a big one. We have a special report. And finally, ahead of the grand opening of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya next month, Ayodhya itself is undergoing a significant transformation. The temple town is buzzing with anticipation. The final countdown has well and truly begun as the city enters the last leg of its total makeover ahead of what is a mega occasion. But first, let's take a look at the visit of the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to Rajouri and his stern message and all that it implies.
A key visit to Jammu and Kashmir by the Defence Minister just days after a major terror attack on the army. Rajnath Singh met troops in Rajouri and held a security review meeting. Remember, last week 4 army men lost their lives as 2 vehicles were ambushed by terrorists. In last 7 months, 20 soldiers have been killed and there has not been much success against battle-hardened terrorists operating in the region. Speaking to troops, Rajnath asked the soldiers to fight terrorism but not hurt any Indian in the process. The army is facing serious allegations of killing 3 civilians after the recent terror attack.
देश की रक्षा के साथ साथ अपने देशवासियों का दिल जीतना, यह भी आपके लिए बहुत बड़ी जिम्मेदारी आपके कंधों के ऊपर है। इस प्रकार की चूक न होने पाए जिससे कोई भारतवासी आहत हो। जिस देश की आप सेवा कर रहे हैं, उस देश के लोगों का विश्वास आप प्राप्त करें।
After meeting soldiers, Rajnath Singh also met families of the killed civilians and 3 others who were injured. Families of Safir Mohammed, Shabbir Ahmed, Shaukat Hussain alleged that the trio were killed due to inhuman torture. The army has already removed a brigadier and 3 other officers, asking them to join the court of inquiry.
क्या expectations हैं?
मुझे कोई expectation नहीं। क्या expectation हो? क्या वो उन मुर्दों को वापस लाएंगे? क्या इनमें वो ताकत है? इतना तो कर सकेंगे। हम उम्मीद करें कि आगे ऐसा जुल्म नहीं हो।
This is second visit of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to Rajouri in last 7 months after a series of attacks on army and region turning into a hotbed of battle-hardened foreign militants. But as the army is facing criticism over alleged custodial torture of civilians which led to death of 3 persons and injuries to several others, Defence Minister reached out to the victims of alleged torture and their families and sent a loud and clear message to the army. Fight terrorism, but don't make a mistake to hurt any civilian. In Srinagar, Nazir Masoodi for NDTV.
Well, joining us now, General VK Malik, the former army chief. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us. General Malik, let me come to you first. One of the key points that have actually been mentioned by the Raksha Mantri, the Defence Minister, was quite stern when he said that it was important for the forces not to do anything wrong, for the army not to do anything wrong. In terms of what we have seen, this video emerging of alleged torture, the death of 3 innocent civilians, how important is that message?
Good evening,
Vishnu. Firstly, I must say that these reports that we have received now about the torture and suspects getting killed in the custody of the army is quite distressing. And to my way of thinking, I think it's a very major aberration to our very well-established and old counterinsurgency doctrine, where we believe in winning the hearts and minds of the soldiers, of the local population, while also trying our best to eliminate the violence that is there in insurgency affected areas. I'm also reminded of what the message had been sent during my time by Atal Bihari Vajpayee when he had said, Insaniyat, Kashmiriyat and Jamhuriyat. I thought that was a very important political message that was given not only to the public, but also to the soldiers who are operating there. And even when our troops are provoked, one expects that they will follow the doctrine and they'll follow the discipline and remain cool. And this kind of custodial death, unfortunately, it has taken place after a very long time. And that's why I'm still calling it aberration. Also, I think what I want to mention here that the ethos and the discipline of the army, the kind of value system that we have, even when our troops are provoked, they are not expected to react in this manner. And I'm reminded, I mean, I can tell you also about what happened during Kargil war. We were provoked many times, and yet we conducted ourselves as per our own value system. And we didn't want to take revenge, the kind of thing that these people were, the Pakistanis were doing. So Raksha Mantri's message, it's a veiled warning. It's a veiled message couched in some good words that probably the troops are required to get from him, having been involved in counterinsurgency operations for such a long time. But I think it's a timely warning from the political head, the defense minister, to all the troops, both the troops on the ground, the soldiers, as well as the officers. And I think it was called for at this stage.
General Malik, do you believe that there is, at the local level, a crisis in leadership? Soldiers don't go and do something, round up people, beat them up, allegations of torture. The videos were horrific. I'm not getting into the contents of that video. Unless there is an order which comes, I don't know how far the order went up, but certainly it would have been passed on at a local level, right? So therefore, is this a challenge in terms of leadership of the army at some level?
Yeah, it is a challenge to the leadership, and I think the leadership also has to accept that blame, because we are supposed to conduct ourselves, we are supposed to educate our troops, we are supposed to instill the discipline that is required, and apparently there has been some failure on that. And therefore, whoever is affected on the ground, it's not the soldiers, but also their leaders, they also must be blamed for it.
General Malik, one final question. There was also a review, which is ongoing, of course, done by the Defence Minister on how India has been conducting, the Army has been conducting our operations in that area where we've had very large number of losses of officers and men. Again, do you believe that this is something the Indian Army needs to look at very closely? It's not ordinary in terms of what we've seen. 9 officers and men dead in the last 1 month. I think there were 10 who died earlier on this year. The number is quite staggering.
Yeah, looking at the number of soldiers who have been killed and the kind of incidents that have been taking place, particularly in the last 8-9 months, I think there is a need for us to review the ground situation, both at the tactical as well as at the strategic level also. And if there has been some dilution because the troops have been moved out from this sector to some other sector, we need to make sure that those gaps are filled. So it's not only the discipline part that we discussed earlier, but I think there is also a need for us to review the whole situation at the tactical level, as well as we cannot have so many soldiers and so many incidents taking place. One knows the challenges of this area, the LOC being so close, the kind of terrain in which our troops are engaged in, and also number of cases where the help has been given by the locals. Looking at all that, I think there is a need for us to carry out a review, both at the tactical as well as the strategic level.
All right, General Malik, thank you very much, sir, for being with us. I'm now joined by SP Vaid, former Director General of Police, Jammu and Kashmir, and General Rameshwar Roy, who is a former Corps Commander of that 16 Corps. 16 Corps is what looks after the area that we are looking at. Mr. Vaid, let me come to you first. Winning hearts and minds is something which the forces have to do. You cannot win against insurgency, terrorism, this, that, and the other without doing that. Therefore, if this corrective step has now been taken by the Defence Minister, how important is it to win back the trust of the Gujjar community over there, which have always supported India 110%?
Good evening, Vishnu. I think Raksha Mantri is very, very right. Winning over the local community is very, very important in this fight against Pak-sponsored terrorism, and you can't win this war unless people are on your side. Ultimately, all information comes from the people who are residing in the area, and Gujjar community in particular has been very, very supportive. And in general, people of Rajouri Poonch, we all have seen during our career of 35-40 years, the people of Rajouri Poonch are very brave, and they have great contribution in fighting terrorism. And very same army and very same J&K police had cleared this area which was so badly affected in the 90s and early 2000s. So there is absolutely no second thought about it. And Raksha Mantri was absolutely right in conveying very clearly the message that we have to carry along our people, and the enemy can be identified and defeated only with the support of people. After all information comes through them, and local police also has to play a great role in generating specific intelligence about these operations. And we need to have our tactical, as General Malik was saying, tactical and strategic review of our operations. Otherwise, the casualty figure is very, very high, which should not actually happen.
Mr. Vaid, just a point of clarification. As I understand it, the area where these civilian deaths took place comes under AFSPA, right? The Armed Forces Special Powers Act. I ask this question because, in a case like this, when there are, murder charges, how is it investigated? Can AFSPA be lifted?
No, the procedure is when AFSA is in force, we do investigate the case. After, as you know, the police has registered an FIR. Case is investigated. After that, you send it through the channel of state government to Union Home Ministry for approval. Once sanction is given, only then you can present the challan in the court of law, and at that time the army can request from the civil court for trial under the Army Act also, because army also has its parallel system of court marshalling and also punishing through the under the Army Act, and that is what is followed generally when AFSA is in force.
General Roy, this is an important point. The Army's own process of law is stringent. If the charges of murder, because that's what we are talking about here, are upheld, there would be extreme punishment as well. Is that right?
Vishnu, firstly, good evening and thanks for inviting me for this program. I would like to say that as far as the army is concerned, the very fact that alongside the operations that we conduct, those are anti-terrorist operations, we have given equal value to what we call Ops Sadbhavna, which is the process of winning hearts and minds of the people. So the Ops Sadbhavna, that is winning hearts and mind, has an equal amount of weightage as we give to the operations. Now, in that, let me be very clear that this, I will not even call it an unfortunate incident. It is more like an accident, because with all the consciousness that the army has, with all the restraints that we have towards the collateral damages, we are well aware of the fact that if there are any such civilian casualties in terms of either collateral damages or whatever information has come out regarding these custodial deaths, which I am not fully aware of as to what are the fine fabrics of the information that has come out. As far as I am concerned, these incidents which occur in this manner are one of those very, very, I would say, isolated accidents which occur, and they are taken very serious note of. As regards the murder charges are concerned, I do not think that could be a very appropriate kind of articulation of the whole process, because these are the operations, and again, in these operations and the circumstances which would have gone into these deaths, I am not yet fully aware of it, so I cannot comment on it really. But when the Armed Forces Special Power Act is applied, this has been coming off and on in debates also as to what are the legal protections that the soldiers have should those things occur during the conduct of operations. I will not be fully able to comment on what are the provisions when those things occur in case of the present incident or accident which is being discussed, that is the custodial deaths. And also let me tell you that I would like to rebut a point which came up earlier by one of the speakers, that it is not a crisis in leadership. Leadership of the army has been very, very consistent and very, very persistent on the fact that we are fighting this war or this particular action of anti-terrorist operations against our own people. And therefore, we are very, very conscious that we do not cause any damage to them. In fact, many of the times that the army has been criticized for our own casualties being high has been on account of our consciousness that we should not cause collateral damage to civilians, even at the cost of our own casualties. Therefore, I will not really be comfortable in these kind of situations where the army is being put into a corner regarding these custodial deaths. I am not sure. I do not have the details, and I would not be fully able to comment on that aspect of the whole incident which has occurred.
Very briefly, General, what is the learning that the army needs to take as far as the operational issues are concerned?
Yes, that's a bigger point, and particularly.
Sir, I'm not sure it's necessarily a bigger point. It is a point. I think what we have seen in Rajouri is fairly shocking, and I think the fact that we have the defense minister there is a recognition of that. But be that as it may, what is the lesson from a tactical standpoint?
Yes, Vishnu, why I said a bigger point, because I have also commanded 25 divisions in Rajouri and also 16 corps at Nagrota. So, point I'm trying to make is that south of Pir Panjal, by and large, has been the low-level operations area. In fact, the epicenter of terrorism has been the valley, and whatever came to south of Pir Panjal came much later. And here, the incidents occur only when due to snowfall, the passes are closed towards the valley or in the valley, and therefore certain degree of infiltration does happen south of Pir Panjal. So my conclusion from these kind of incidents where we have had very large casualties during this year particularly, one, that the operations have not occurred only when the passes are closed in the valley, but they have been spread throughout the year. Is it because there is a change in tactics of the terrorists themselves who are operating? Is it because there have been some bit of degree of, I would say, the displacement of population from the valley towards south of Pir Panjal? The connectivity between the passes have improved on the south of Pir Panjal itself, as we are aware of. Therefore, the more OGWs are available now south of Pir Panjal also to give shelter to these kind of people who are conducting these operations. There are also reports, in fact, November last year, the army commander had mentioned that there are around 300 terrorists which are, to be around that much number is active in the valley, out of which 82 are foreign terrorists, 53 are local terrorists, but 170 are not known whether they are foreign terrorists or they are local terrorists. So this 170 number is a large number which could belong to local terrorists, because as you are aware that for last couple of years, there has been spurt in the recruitment of the terrorists south of in southern Kashmir also.
General, you make lots of important points, and
Yes.
I mean, it's an important day today as far as the government dealing with this entire situation. I think also very important that the Defence Minister visited those injured in hospital as a result of that brutality that we saw. I'd like to thank you both very much for joining us. We're going to quickly move on at this stage. A huge worry: the war in Israel is expanding to larger parts of West Asia, with Israel hinting at military operations across the Middle East. A war on 7 fronts, the Defence Minister stating. We are coming under attack from Gaza, Lebanon and Syria. Israel has also come under attack from Houthi drones fired from Yemen. My colleague Parmeshwar Bawa has these details.
Well, Israel is engaged in a multi-front war, its defense minister has said, hinting at military operations across the Middle East as the war in Gaza shows new signs of a dangerous regional escalation. Israel's defense minister has warned of a growing risk of a regional conflict in the Middle East as tensions with Iran increase. In fact, he has told Parliamentary Committee that Israel was being attacked in a multi-arena war from 7 areas, which he identified as Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen and Iran. Now, these comments come after the US announced late on Christmas Day that it had struck 3 facilities used by the Iran-backed Hezbollah militia and others affiliated to the so-called Axis of Resistance in Iraq. Now, that strike was ordered as retaliation for a drone attack earlier in the day on a military base hosting US troops in northern Iraq that critically injured 1 US service member. Iraqi officials said that the US strikes had killed 1 militant and injured 18 others. But amid mounting Israeli military losses and growing international condemnation of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Israeli officials in recent days have emphasized that the war against Hamas will take time. They are also, as of yet, unwilling to relent on the ambitious goals set at the outset of their campaign. But this war in Gaza threatens to spill outside the borders of Israel and the Palestinian territories, and Israel's retaliatory war on the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip has already become one of the most destructive conflicts of the 21st century, with estimates suggesting more than 20,000 people have been killed, 55,000 people have been injured, and 85% of the Palestinian territory's 2.3 million people, they have been forced to flee their homes.
יש לנו לוחמים על הקרקע, לפעמים גם מתחת לקרקע, ויש לנו עיניים בשמיים. אנחנו אומרים למחבלי החמאס, אנחנו רואים אתכם ואנחנו נגיע אליכם. אנחנו ממשיכים במלחמה, מעמיקים את הלחימה בדרום הרצועה ובמקומות אחרים. אנחנו נלחמים עד הסוף ובעזרת הטכנולוגיה המתקדמת ביותר.
Well, joining us now, Colonel Peter Lerner, senior spokesperson of the Israeli Defense Forces. Thanks, Colonel Lerner, very much for being with us. While we focus on Gaza, as we have for the last several days, could you give us a sense of the threats that Israel presently faces from Syria and also from Lebanon, in addition to Houthi rebels who've been firing missiles and drones in your direction?
Thank you. Yes, indeed, we have seen over the last several days and increasingly over the last 2 months an extension of Iran's offensive activities against Israel via their proxies in the region, whether it be the Houthis, who are launching cruise missiles towards Israel, and Hezbollah, of course, with an extensive anti-tank guided missiles, surface-to-surface missiles, mortar fire, drone capabilities, sniper fire, machine gun fire, heavy warheads, rockets being fired at northern Israel. So, and of course, we have seen also some, although albeit at a lesser extent from Syria. So we've seen across our frontiers extensive increase of violence, of hostilities. I would say all orchestrated by Iran. We are maintaining defensive postures on all of those frontiers, seeking out, preventing, preempting attacks against us when they appear to be preparing for them, but also defending and striking in the after effect of each and every attack. We are not prepared for our sovereignty to be breached. We are not prepared for hostile activities against us, and we will seek out and destroy all of those that try and conduct and escalate the situation further. It will not, I would say, and I think this is the most important focal point, our efforts are mostly focused and will continue to be focused on the main arena, that being the Gaza Strip against Hamas, against the terrorist organization that launched the most brutal massacre against our people on the 7th of October.
Colonel Lerner, what evidence does Iran presently have on any Iranian, does Israel presently have on any Iranian involvement?
$100 million every year given to Hamas is a clear enough evidence. Their words, their actions, how they are training, how they are equipping, how they are funding, everything that is happening, all of the hostile entities that are attacking us, they are jeopardizing the safety and security and sanctity of the region. They are the main destabilizer. And this is an enemy, and this is the realities that we are facing, the threat to our people.
Colonel, there's the other rather insidious threat in the Red Sea right now. Any warship, or I beg your pardon, any ship, merchant marine associated with Israel is being targeted by Houthi rebels. We've had a ship 400 kilometers off the coast of India targeted by a drone strike as well. What can Israel really do about this threat? Because, the safety of the Red Sea concerns the entire world.
And indeed, we have seen the entire world rally against this threat because people realize that this terrorist organization cannot hold the entire world and all of the naval routes hostage. Our position regarding the Houthis is a defensive posture as well. We are maintaining our defensive capabilities in order to prevent attacks against our ships, Israeli ships. Of course, is the port of Eilat and the tourist town of Eilat. And indeed, the defensive posture is being successful up until now, but they are also increasing their hostilities towards all nations and I would say all of the ships that are sailing in the region. This is a terrorist organization that thinks that they can undermine global economy at the beck and call of Iran.
A final question, Colonel Lerner. The strikes that Israel has conducted in central Gaza now, what were the objectives and what have you been able to find?
The IDF is continuing to broaden the scope of our activities against Hamas. We are determined to dismantle and destroy Hamas as a governing authority, as a terrorist entity, and as an entity that is still holding 129 Israelis hostage. So wherever they are, whether it's in the north, the south, or central Gaza Strip, we will operate against them. And this is why the operation and the operations on the ground are broadening, I would say, every single day in order to achieve our goals of dismantling and destroying Hamas, making sure they never have the governing power of a government again, so that they cannot build and rally an army, so that they cannot conduct hostilities, and so that they cannot abduct Israelis. And of course, the second goal is to bring back the hostages, every last one of them.
A final question. Hamas says from the Gaza Strip that 20,000 people in the Gaza Strip have died. Does Israel accept those numbers?
I'd be very, very, very cautious of accepting any figures Hamas offers the world. This is an organization that will butcher babies in their bedrooms. I don't think they'd have any problem lying about a number. From our perspective, of course, each and every life lost in this war is a deep tragedy, first of all, to the families of those people, and secondly, to the community, but also to the region and the people of Gaza at large. I would say we are going out of our way to minimize the casualties, while Hamas are going out of their way to maximize civilian casualties. Unfortunately, they have no regard for human life, Israeli or Palestinian, and we've seen it precisely because where they are putting their infrastructure, where they are launching their attacks from, where they hid hostages in hospitals, and where they are conducting their activities from today. So we are continuing our operations within the laws of armed conflict, distinguishing between civilians and terrorists, distinguishing between those that are not involved and those that are conducting the hostilities against us. And indeed, we are trying to minimize that effect. But at the end of the day, each and every one of those deaths lies on the shoulders of Hamas that instigated, that conducted this brutal attack against us, and strategically chose to attack Israel.
Yeah.
We did not ask for this war. It was a surprise war launched against us from a strategic perspective, they did. So we are here. We will continue our war and we will achieve our goals.
All right, Colonel Lerner, thank you very much, for sharing that perspective also on, the international threats over and above the Gaza Strip, which Israel now faces. Thanks very much indeed. We're going to move on with this discussion. We're joined by Dr. Fouad Izzadi, Associate Professor, Faculty of World Studies at the University of Tehran. Dr. Izzadi, thank you very much for being with us. Israel says that there is overwhelming evidence of an Iranian hand in the arming of Hamas. How would you respond?
Iran is proud to support the Palestinian cause. Iran has been supporting the Palestinian cause for many, many years. And Iran has indeed a responsibility. And not only Iran has a responsibility, any free nation, any independent nation, when you see 200 children killed on daily basis, massacred by 2,000-pound bombs, by engaging in death and destruction campaign, when you see a regime, a military regime that is killing women and children in massive scale, engaging in a genocide, engaging in a project, a colonial project that's aimed at destroying a nation. It's indeed the responsibility of all free people to engage in some sort of protest or engage in some sort of help to stop the genocide. Because if Israelis can get away with killing Palestinians today, then any type of massacre could be possible tomorrow. So responsible nations have a responsibility to support the Palestinian cause, stop.
So I think the point, Dr. Izzadi, is that it's not, the issue of supporting the Palestinian cause. Several countries around the world, including India, support a final resolution, possibly a two-nation settlement, which does exist. Be that as it may, the concern is on Iran arming and supporting Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. We've seen their attacks on Israel and innocent civilians, which triggered this entire thing. So how would you respond to those who say that Iran is arming and funding Hamas?
Iran is helping the Palestinian cause. Iran is helping Hamas indeed. Hamas is not a terrorist state. Hamas is not a terrorist organization. Hamas is an organization that's trying to free Palestine under the UN Charter, Article 51. If your country is occupied, if your country is attacked, you have a responsibility to respond. And this is what Hamas is doing. They have been trying to engage.
Dr. Izzadi, respectfully, the pictures that we have on our screens, and I completely understand what you're talking about, the horror which is happening in the Gaza Strip. But these pictures are of people, Israeli and international citizens, right, who've been killed by Hamas when Hamas triggered this war on Israeli soil. So how can you say that Hamas is anything but a terrorist organization?
It is not a terrorist organization. I ask you to be fair. Have a problem with Western media outlets, with Israeli media outlets that start the Palestinian conflict, Israeli occupation of Palestine. They start on October 7th. And this is not very accurate. The problem started in 1948 when the people who are living in Gaza were forcefully put there because of the massacres that they experienced. So it's a 75-year problem.
Yes, of course.
3 years ago, we had people in Gaza peacefully demonstrating at the border. And they were asking, they were under sanctions, severe sanctions for 17 years. So we had normal citizens without any arms, without any missiles, going to the border and asking for the sanctions to be lifted. An Israeli criminal war machine killed more than 200 civilians because they were coming to the border and asking peacefully.
But Dr. Izadi, in as much as any act of violence is wrong, in as much as any act of violence is wrong, would you not condemn the attack which resulted in the death of 1,400 Israelis and people from other countries?
If Hamas started this war, if Hamas was responsible for the occupation of Palestine, if Hamas engaged in killing civilians, started killing civilians, then of course any human being would condemn Hamas. But as I said,
I assume that you do as well. I think what is taking place in Gaza in terms of the loss of life is horrific. Children dying, women dying, etc., etc. The condition in hospitals, the humanitarian plight, it is all disastrous. There's no two ways about that. But I fail to understand, sir, respectfully, and I know the history of the area, but how can anything justify the attack on Israeli soil on that day in which people were kidnapped and others butchered? Babies, mothers.
75 years of occupation, thousands of Palestinian deaths, thousands of people in prison, 17 years of severe sanctions and blockade.
The solution to fixing that problem was entering Israel and butchering families. Was that the solution?
Yeah, only solution that Palestinians have realized is going to have any type of effect is military resistance, and that's a UN charter right that they have. Article 51, if you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it. If your country is occupied, you have the right to resist militarily. And this is what they are doing. And let me remind you that a lot of civilians that were killed on October 7 were killed by the people that you brought the program just a few minutes ago. They realized that they were attacked. They started shooting anybody that was moving. You saw that just a couple of weeks ago.
Well, that was unfortunate. That may have been an unfortunate reaction to that situation, yes. But I think the larger issue of just...
They are responsible for it. Because the Israelis shoot at anyone that is moving.
I think, don't care, and I'm sure you appreciate it's a little bit more complicated than that. I'm only interrupting you because I'm running short on time on this program. I do appreciate your perspective, but the only perspective perhaps which works is that violence cannot resolve a crisis which has gone on for as long as it is. It doesn't matter whether you're Palestinian or Israeli. We're going to take a short break. Up after that, a couple of special reports, including a look back at India's Moon Mission 2023 and how Ayodhya is getting spruced up before the Ram Temple opens up next month. Well, let's quickly move on now to a special look back at 2023, the big international stories from an Indian standpoint, but also an international story of huge significance. India on the moon, Chandrayaan 3, that remarkable mission.
The final descent onto the surface of the moon. Several minutes of hell for scientists at ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. This is what they had worked at for years. But right now, as they watch this live feed of the Vikram lander make its way down to the surface of the moon, they could do nothing. Vikram was on full automatic mode. It was making decisions for itself. And then, finally, touchdown.
लैंडर मॉड्यूल are applauding. Let us all wait to hear from the Secretary
The entire nation loves us, ISRO, for the accomplishment, and with the support of the nation only we can progress. And I am very grateful for all your love and affection and your prayers for making us succeed. I think it says so much about belief in our own system and our own people. and that is something that we need to celebrate.
India was now the fourth nation in the world to have landed a spacecraft with a rover on the surface of the moon, and the first nation to have managed to touch down close to the moon's south pole. This was the bittersweet moment for India. Just a few years earlier, Chandrayaan-2 crashed onto the surface of the moon just moments before it was to touch down. But the spirit of ISRO runs deep. Chandrayaan-3 was an incredible story.
Plus 5 seconds. Lift-off normal, P1 tracking. R2 tracking.
Hours after settling onto the lunar surface, Vikram, the lander, opened up a ramp for Pragyan, a small rover, to move to the surface of the moon.
Tell us a little bit about the Pragyan rover. The fact that, it was able to semi-autonomously avoid areas that you wanted it to avoid. There was also a lot of data it generated. What is some of the science that you got out of Pragyan and Vikram?
So the rover, as you told, it is a semi-autonomous way of operation, because a rover is not directly communicating with Earth. It is always communicating via lander, because it is very tiny, which is 26 kg of mass with small size, but it is inbuilt with all the functions. We have two scientific instruments. One is alpha particle X-ray spectrometer. The next instrument is laser-based induced spectroscopy. These both instruments will measure the major and minor rock-forming elements, like various elements like calcium, iron, titanium, and it has detected various elements also like sulfur and all. The other one is basically operates in the laser wavelength, 1550 nanometer wavelength, which is again a spectroscopic kind of an experiment that also measures the various rock-forming elements. This will confirm the actual surface experiments.
The Chandrayaan mission was an engineering triumph, but there was a larger scientific component as well. Both Vikram and the Pragyan rover had specific instruments on board to enable them to carry out chemical analysis of the surface of the moon. The mission as a whole is also a huge first step as India's space program gets set for its next big challenge, an Indian space station in the 2030s and the first Indian on the surface of the moon in the 2040s. 2023 was another year when ISRO sparked the interest of a nation on indigenous engineering, Indian science, and our quest to make a mark on the ultimate frontier, space. Vishnu Shobh for NDTV.
Ayodhya is undergoing a significant transformation. The temple town is buzzing with anticipation. The final countdown has begun in Ayodhya as the city enters the last leg of its total makeover ahead of the big event, the unveiling of the Ram Mandir on the 22nd of January.
Ayodhya is all set for consecration of Ram Temple on 22nd January. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be the chief guest and he will do special prayers at the Ram Mandir premises. The Pran Pratishtha Day, that is 22nd January, will be auspicious day for all Hindus and the devotees of Lord Rama. I am here at Ayodhya and this is the temple where you can see construction work is going on and all preparations is underway for 22nd January. The first phase of temple construction is almost complete and the decoration work has started for the grand event scheduled for next month. The first phase of Ram Temple is completed. The length of the temple, being built in traditional Nagar Shaili style, will be 380 feet. Width will be 250 feet and height will be 161 feet. The statue of Lord Rama will be kept at that place where you can see the construction work is going on, and that will be the Garbhagriha of the Ram Temple. The height of each floor of the three-story temple will be 20 feet. There will be a total 392 pillars and 44 doors inside the temple. The total area of Ram Temple, the premises is 70 acres, while the temple where the work is going on is 2.7 acres. I mean, the construction which is going on is in 2.7 acre land of the total 70 acres of Ram temple. So preparations are going on, and you can see the Ram Mandir Trust has invited media to see how the preparation is going on. The design is prepared by Chandrakant Shompura, and its construction work has been done by company Larsen and Toubro. In front of me you can see this is the stones which is being used in temple construction. These stones are from Rajasthan. It belongs to Bharatpur district of Rajasthan. These are Makrana marbles, which is very strong, and in Bansipur Paharpur area of Bharatpur district of Rajasthan it is found. So Ayodhya will witness a mega event on 22nd Jan. Prime Minister Modi is visiting Ayodhya on 30th December to inaugurate the newly built airport and the railway station. So mega event will be held on 30th of December and 22nd of January, and preparations are going on. With camera person Rajesh Gupta, Ranveer, NDTV, Ayodhya.
The door to Ayodhya Ram Temple has a connection with Hyderabad, and I'll tell you how, because the doors are actually being made by a Hyderabad-based international global company, Arada Timbers. And I have with me the director, Mr. Sharad Babu. You're making the Sanctum Sanctorum doors and all other doors as well. Tell me, how did you come about this? Because I know you talk a lot about divine intervention, having a hand in this.
Of course. We are making all the Garbhagudi doors. We have completed it, and center pad, side pad doors for the mandir. So far 18 doors of the main temple are completed, and we are making another 100 frames around the temple, which is pilgrimage facility. Those are also completed. So far until yesterday we have completed about 118 doors, and hope we have to finish some more in the next future. Very soon whatever work is given to us, we are completing it. And of course this is a God-given blessing for giving such an opportunity. We were selected by the Tata Engineering Services, Larsen and Toubro and Ayodhya Trust. They have selected us to do this job, and so far we have been receiving appreciations from their side to complete this work.
Okay, how did this come about? You've also done work for Yadadri. Did that catch someone's eye, or was it an open tender that was floated for this?
They invited everybody from India, all the people who are the best. There is no tender, but they have interviewed us and they have seen our past works. Prior to that, they originally invited us to do a model for the mandir, which we have completed by Sri Ram Navami and placed inside the temple. Sri Champat Rai ji first asked us to, it's a test I think, I don't know, but he asked us to complete one model in wood, which how the temple is going to look like. That is the first one which we placed inside the temple when the foundation was still not dug. So after that, then we were called after this year to come and set up a shop there and finish all the doors which we were given in this time frame task. So,
what are the, share with us the details of the doors of the Sanctum Sanctorum. I understand it's about 8 feet tall and 12 feet wide.
They are 12 feet wide, 8 feet tall and 5 inches in thickness. We have used very high quality Balarsha teak wood. Out of any 100 pieces, we used only selected 20 pieces to complete this quality. It is our estimated time that these doors should last at least 1,000 years, because we haven't used any nails, screws, etc. into this making of this. We have followed very traditional methods to do this joinery and carpentry.
So where did those artisans, craftsmen, I know you source from everywhere, wherever the best of the men are there, you source them. So how many of them are at work there? And what happens? I know it's actually a marrying of tradition and technology as well.
Yeah, we use both. Because to obtain speed, we have to use technology. But the way we make it is still very traditional, and it is hand carved, all handmade. All these guys are from Tamil Nadu. They are from Kanyakumari. The team which we are using is the same team who made the Yadadri doors. Kumaraswamy Ramesh is the carver, main carver, principal Stapati. He and his family members, his team, are working inside the temple. There are about 60 people working on this job.
Tell us about the detailing. There must be obviously shastras that are followed, and what theme will fit in where. How about the designing itself done? How do you say which are the motifs which are going to go there?
Nagara Saili is used in the temple. The whole temple architecture is based on that. Sompura architects have given us all the designs. Mostly the motifs are elephants, lotus, as well as peacocks are used, and these are fine hand carved with very fine details are done. I will share some photographs with you which you can see. This is a craftsmanship which we were able to achieve at the desired quality in such a short time is God-given blessings.
Okay. That detailing, the work, the fine craftsmanship, all that is there for everyone to see. What more happens? Engravings with gold, to kind of decorate it even further, make it even more attractive?
They are completely, whatever we made like gold kind of teak wood, then the trust has decided to cover all the doors with pure gold. So all the doors will be plated with gold, and they will be, of course, gold is gold, they will look like gold.
Okay, so we look forward to that. So the entrance, wherever you walk, everywhere you will have that Hyderabad connection. So like they say, the entrance to heaven is something that has to go through the most beautiful of places, and perhaps Hyderabad and the connection with this city to Ayodhya coming through this statue. Of course, before we end off, I want to ask you about this very beautiful carving from a single piece of wood that you have here of Rama temple itself. This is keeps for Hyderabad, or will this also go to Ayodhya?
Let Lord Ram decide where he wants to go. I'm just making it out of my own this thing. This is the world's second largest Burmati clock. Of course, the first one we have where we made Ananta Shaina, Sesha Shaina Sri Mahavishnu Murti. Next to it we started Sri Ramji, because Ram temple is being built in India. This is the time to chisel out of this log Ram. Maybe he's lying there. This log is here with me since 20 years, and 4 or 5 times, and once we made it erect, and then we started chiseling, and Ram is coming out of it.
Okay. So God takes his own creations wherever he is, and the route he has taken is through this Hyderabad-based company. In Hyderabad, camera person Nagaraju, Masudhir, NDTV.